Here we go. Fireside chat, relational AI. We are here with Ibrahim Barghouti, someone who's, you correct me if I'm wrong, 2, 3 months in, but you have
Yeah,
a,
2 months in.
you have a little bit of familiarity, I think, with the business, a little bit different than the rest of us, which I do want to hear that familiarity. But without further delay, let's give you an opportunity to open it up. Why'd
Yeah,
you join Relational AI? What are you so excited about? All the good stuff. Let's go.
I'll start with that. Maybe this was like 16 years in the making, in a sense of
Nice.
a bit of a full circle picture here. I graduated at Georgia Tech. I did industrial engineering, and my first job was with Molham at his previous company, right? So he's like a serial entrepreneur. This is like his third or fourth company that he's going through this motion with, too. But like back in 2008, he was the first CEO of the first company I worked for, and that's really when the kind of startup bug bit, right? So spent 6 years there, and then we kind of we went our separate ways. He ended up selling that company for a good bit, 2 and 4, and I kind of did a consulting path. So I did a couple other startups, and then ended up at McKinsey, which was like a odd path to get there in itself, right? And I figured, hey, I'm gonna go at McKinsey, learn a bunch of stuff, get a nice big brand on my resume, and go back into the startup world. So I thought that was a year or two journey. Ended up being like 8, almost 9 years at the firm. So obviously learned a lot, and it was a great place to be. But over the time, I always stayed in touch with Molham, who's been a mentor over the years of like, hey, what's going on and whatnot. And then he says like, hey man, stop dragging your feet. This is the time, right? This is going to be big, and we need your help to kind of scale it. So I'm like, uh, you know, anytime you speak to Mohammed, you're automatically convinced. I'm like, wait a minute, I have to pump the brakes a little bit. So let me do some diligence here first, right? So I'm like, Mohammed, let me
Let
talk
me
to
let me
other
put on that
people.
McKinsey hat and do some
Yeah, that's right.
analysis.
That's right. Like, I was like, didn't want to drink the Kool-Aid too fast. So I'm like, to me, it felt like AI is here to stay, right? Like what form it takes in the next 3 to 5 years, I don't think anyone can accurately predict, but it's gonna come, and it's gonna disrupt the way we work. It's gonna be integrated in all the decision making we make. So that automatically determined, yeah, this is the right space, right? So the next question was like, is this the right company? Now, I'm not a technologist. I don't know what the future of data platforms or AI is going to be. I put my trust in the people behind it, right? So like and I learned that early in my career at McKinsey. And McKinsey, they take you when you make manager, you go to this thing called EM College in Cambridge, where you do an assessment of like, what gives you strength and what drains you, right? What I learned was it was less about the subject matter, more about the people I worked with. Because if it's a hard problem, tough customer, tough client, you could get through it with the people, right? Because you enjoy working with them. They push you, they challenge you intellectually, and at the end of the day, you can still enjoy solving these problems with them too. So that's one of the big things that attracted me to relational AI was like Molham, Marco. I mean, the talent density is insane there, right? So it's who's who of technologists and their specific subject matter experts. That was very inspiring. So for me, it was like, if anything, if nothing else, right, it's going to be a great place to learn. And learning in the field of AI is the place to be.
Without a doubt, I love that background. The thing that you mentioned there too, and we spoke previously about this, but you went to the AI and Future of Finance conference, at Georgia Tech, and I thought it was so cool the way you described how many different people were talking about AI and knowledge graphs and graph rag and all these other very complex technical concepts, but they were also talking about it from a business perspective that gets guys like us really excited. And I love the way you talked about the pattern of you had so many inspiring conversations with so many people that are seeing, as you mentioned, the puck going in that same direction. I wonder if you want to share anything about that experience that you
Yeah,
had at Georgia Tech.
yeah. To me, the biggest takeaway was the validation, right? Like I was
Yeah.
saying previously, like I'm not a technologist, but like hearing, a PhD student and his team working on problems that we're solving is validation, right? So like, oh, all right. So to solve AI problems, it needs to be relational, right? To solve an AI problem, it needs to be agentic, right? It needs to be data centric. Those are the core tenets of what we do and how we think the paradigm is shifting from these like monolithic solutions to like that siloed microservices to now data-centric applications that are intelligent, and hearing that validation from BlackRock and who's who of the finance situations, like research PhD students talking about these situations and how they're solving it, and maybe not exactly the same approach, but similar, right? So to me, that was like, okay, now this is the right time at the right place, and it's all about like, how do we make this big and execute, right? So the destiny is a little bit more in our hands.
Without a doubt. So, I know you're all of a couple months in, but let's get into like, what's the day to day like, and tell us a little bit about some of the similarities to some of the startup stuff that you've done in the past, and/or McKinsey, and some of the differences, and just bring us into your world on a day to day basis so far.
Right. So it's the pace is very similar, right? So like at McKinsey, high pace, high bar, right? So here, I would say high pace, high bar, high stakes, right? Because like every decision we make, right, has direct impact, and you see it automatically, right? So, we have a burn rate that we got to manage. We have growth targets that we have to hit. These are real implications versus just recommendations that you can make. I was also talking about like to a former McKinsey colleague as well too. It's like, look, we could work with these Fortune 100 companies and eke out an extra percent in margin for them too. Or we could build something from scratch, right? And like say, hey, take something from 0 to 100 million. That journey, right? Like you might get to the same 100 million, but it's very different paths to get there. And the ride to go from 0 to 100, or going from a billion to a billion.1, are very different experiences. And I wanted to be in the experience of, how do I take something from very, very small to very, very big, and being able to do that. Now, the levers are the same, right? Like you need to have the right commercial strategy, right? So the frameworks that you use for that too, you just need to be more flexible and adaptable and stage appropriate for these type of things, right? Then there's like org discussions. How do you structure the org to be able to support the growth? How do you message your impact and what you do in a way that's consumable by various different audiences? Are you talking to investors? Are you talking to your chief data officer? Are you talking to the guy actually writing the code? What does he care about? Versus I'm a CDO and I care about, hey, I'm modernizing my application. It's going to reduce my TCO by 50%, right? Like that's something that's going to resonate for him. I'm AI capable. Now I could build future apps. The guy that's on the ground is like, look, man, I'm just trying to make a workload run that doesn't take 2 days to run. Like if this could run under an hour, I'm a very happy person. Like being able to understand the nuances between all those levels, I think is, it's being able to define that, restructure it, iterate over it with our teams has been an incredible journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned solving tough problems, and it sounds like that's something that you really enjoy. Tell us a little bit more about culturally the types of problems that you like to solve, and the types of people that you like to solve them with in terms of their profiles. And I hate to use the word synergy, but it sounds like you might have done some great analysis of your strengths and so on and so forth when you're at McKinsey. I'd be curious to hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed the intersection of tech enablement and commercial decisions, right? Like this, how do we use technology to make better commercial decisions? Now, we could use that from an internal within relational AI of like, okay, how do we look at our data and like, where do we have the most traction, and how do we drive, set us up for the most growth, right? That's like the internal side of it. Externally, we could work with our customers like, oh, okay, this specific algorithm can help you market better, right? So now we could leverage graph analytics to do community detection. And now based off of this information, you can market more effectively. Now every dollar you spent on marketing is worth more, right? So those type of conversations, whether it's internally on like, how do we do what we want to do better versus working directly with customers to solve their specific problems, is awesome. To me, it's all about, I love playing that translator role of like, okay, if I'm in between the business and the data scientist, like what are they trying to solve, and what levers do they have to actually pull to solve it, right? And then technically, how do we build that into an algorithm or into a workload or into an application that answers that? And it doesn't answer it today, but it answers it tomorrow and the day after, right? So, and what another kind of key takeaway from the Georgia Tech conference was like, these functions are siloed right now, but there's in the world, right? A decision in one bucket is gonna, like, if I make a finance decision or if I make a sales forecasting decision, there's no reason it shouldn't be tied to a staffing decision, because I know sales are coming up because of seasonality. It's going to increase 20%. Actually, we're going to exceed our forecast based by 30%. So there's a staffing implication on that too, right? In a world where we're data centric and agentic, right? Those relationships can be automatically derived, and instantly the agents are going to know, like, well, actually, I need to staff one more person to support this increase in demand.
Without a doubt. And I think last question, if you were speaking to those that we want to recruit to join Relational AI, what's the recruiting pitch, and where can people find you to learn more and follow your journey, whether it be on LinkedIn or otherwise, as you continue to make progress towards your first 6 months at Relational AI?
Yeah, I would say, like, give me 6 months, let me figure it out. Like, there's so much to be done right here, right? Like, when you're scaling something from 10 million to 100 million, right? There's jobs that you even haven't thought of yet, right? So there's going to be roles for everything, and part of the excitement about being in a startup is, like, you get to play a lot of different roles. But as we formalize things, there's going to be tons of opportunity around the go to market team, which is what I'm in, right? There's going to be tons of opportunity around partnership, and product is such core to what we do, right? It's like building the next generation of the product and it's always iterating. There's always a need and a want there. So in summary, like, give me a couple of months to kind of figure out where we have the most need is. We're actively hiring, so if this is interesting, both from a product go to market or a delivery perspective across those three buckets, I think feel free to reach out. I'm sure you'll somehow figure out how to put my information in response. I'll leave that to your faithful hands.
Without a
But
doubt. And we're
yeah,
gonna hold you to that. We're gonna have another one of these conversations at the
yeah,
six
yeah.
month
Fair
mark, and
point.
I can't wait to revisit it. But thank you, Ibrahim, for the time. It's always a pleasure, and I know folks are gonna enjoy watching this.
Awesome. I appreciate it.